Copeland. This is the Beverly Copeland Report. Today is Wednesday, January the 30th, 2013. I'm going to talk first about the geopolitical, then I'm going to intersperse the personal, and I'm going to talk about the personal in this series. So this is part one of the series. I'm going to start off with a quote that I started off from, I discussed in the last series. It is a quote from Polish-born, American scholar Zbigniew Brzezinski's book, Between Two Ages. The quote is right before the first chapter. It is a quote from Hermann Hesse's book, Steppenwolf. And here it is, quote, "Human life is reduced to real suffering, to hell, only when two ages, two cultures, and religions overlap. There are times when a whole generation is caught in this way, between two ages, two modes of life, with the consequence that it loses all power to understand itself and has no standard, no security, no simple acquiescence." And this is how he starts his book. And the name of the book again is Between Two Ages. It was published in 1970, before I got to Columbia University as an undergraduate. And, you can infer from the book that he's talking about the transition from the post-industrial society to the information age, the IT, computing, high-tech age. His neologism for the information age is the technotronic age, or the technotronic society. To me, such thinking is sick. The idea that when you transition from one society or mode to another, that life has to be turned into pure hell, to real suffering, suggests to me a very sick piece of shit. Pardon my French. But the sad thing is that his colleagues at Columbia University have consistently told me that Zbigniew Brzezinski is the architect of what we are living through, this chaos. I am entitled to my opinion. Although it is implicit or suggested in his book that he's talking about the transition again from the post-industrial to the information age. What I think he really is alluding to, or my interpretation is, the second American Revolution. Specifically, the fact that the elites in the American political intellectual class have hijacked society, and they are rebelling against the old established corporate capitalist Anglo-Saxon hegemony in an attempt to replace it with a Yugoslav, Polish-led hegemony, neo-Nazi, I might add, neo-fascist, Polish-led hegemony. Now, so I say it is a second American Revolution because the first American Revolution really, the first American Revolution, with the Revolutionary War, with Washington and Jefferson, strictly speaking, that was not a revolution, ladies and gentlemen, not at all. It really amounted to, in my opinion, a rebellion, a call for power sharing among elites, specifically among the British aristocrats who really owned and controlled the American colonies, and the monarchy and the British aristocrats in Britain. I think it was a cry for power sharing on the part of uh, the American, aristocrats who really wanted more control and power and of the colonies. It really, in my opinion, wasn't a revolution. It was, in fact, ladies and gentlemen, putting my hat on as an economist, I can tell you, to this very day, we still are a colony of Britain. Oh, absolutely. All you have to do is follow the money. Follow the money. As I have said, I've been saying this for years, the world is controlled by 8 ruling tribes, 2 Catholic and 6 Protestant: English, Irish, Welsh, Scotch, Dutch, German, Swede, and French. And so these United States, through a syndicate of institutional investors, the wealth, really the multinationals, the corporate wealth, is still largely in the hand of those tribes. Most notably, we are really still a colony of Britain. Follow the money. Now, so I see what's happening as a rebellion, a revolution. Not really, for the first time, a revolution. Because this American Revolution was spearheaded by the American political, and I'm entitled to my opinion, American political intellectual class, for the first time in the history of the Eurocentric world, which today, keeping it real, is the world, keeping it real. For the first time in the history of the Eurocentric world, there is an attempt to shift control, really to wrestle, to take control away from the Western Europeans who have dominated control, whatever euphemism you want to use, the Eurocentric world, and to put it firmly in the hands of Euroslavs, Poles, Eastern Europeans, now they're called Central Europeans. Poles, what I call the Polish lobby. For the first time, that really, ladies and gentlemen, would be a radical revolution. That would be a revolution if control of the Eurocentric world was taken from the old world Anglo-Saxon Western capitalist corporate capitalist hegemony, which not only is the capitalists, but the blue bloods and the church, most notably the most powerful church, the Catholic Church. If that were taken away from those people and given to Poles, Euroslavs, ladies and that would really be a revolution, one that we've never experienced in human history. Never. It is a second American Revolution, really the first real revolution. The first one was a rebellion, a cry for power sharing among really aristocrats in the colonies and in the mother country, Britain. So that would really be a revolution. Again, I have been told by his colleagues at Columbia University, the architect of this is a man named Zbigniew Brzezinski, a Polish-born American scholar. And my reading, I'm entitled in my opinion, most people, fair-minded people who read his writings, his books like Between Two Ages, his book like The Grand Chessboard, and his writings on Eastern Europe post his books, they read like there's some kind of grand blueprint for this Yugoslav hegemony. Now he's quick to say that he doesn't speak in terms of one state becoming hegemonic. No, he's clever, but my reading is he's talking about a Polish-led Yugoslav hegemony, which would be radical beyond belief. These tribes who have controlled the Eurocentric world from its inception, really Africans who were either forced out of Africa or left for whatever reason. They settled in Mesopotamia and the Fertile Crescent. They migrated to Greece, to Rome, then to northwestern Europe, and they morphed into today what we know as the Anglo-Saxon tribes. Now there are several Anglo-Saxon tribes that these Africans who settled in Mesopotamia, the Fertile Crescent, and then went to Greece and Rome and then north in Western Europe. There are 7 ruling tribes. They are the English, the Irish, the Welsh, the Scotch, the Dutch, the Swede, the French. They, I can put my hat on as an economist, they rule this world. No doubt, no doubt. No doubt, no doubt. And I am a proud, unabashed supporter, a loyalist of those 7 tribes. You know, I'm going to push the envelope. I'm just going to keep it real. I could not live in a world with anyone else but those Anglo-Saxon tribes in power. And all you got to do is look at Africa, Asia, Latin America, the Middle East, and keeping it real, understand exactly what I mean. You know, using Churchill's language. He said democracy is the worst form of government except when compared to all the others. Anglo-Saxon rule is the worst except when compared to all the others. When you compare it to all the others, you say, I say, phew, thank God they are running the show. One big problem is that in this IT age, they have been hoodwinked in deferring, really conceding their power to the American political intellectual class, who, in my opinion, has used fear, the yellow peril, the black threat, to hoodwink them into thinking that they had to destroy themselves in order to save themselves. Hence, I'm going to read the quote. Human life is reduced to real suffering, to hell, only when 2 ages, 2 cultures, and religions overlap. Now, to destroy themselves, to save themselves. To destroy themselves, why? To break the peoples of the world in order to usher in this IT Orwellian world where people are controlled. Okay, that's what I meant. But the thing is, we are not the threat. People of Blackie is not. People of color, we are not the threat. We have never been the threat. That is in part the legacy of slavery and colonialism. The black threat is one of the longest running jokes I know. Black people, first, foremost, and fundamentally, we are a threat to each other more than anything else. Just look at America, look at the Caribbean, look at Africa, look at Africans in Africa or in the diaspora. We are more of a threat to ourselves than anyone else. I am a victim of that. My mother was a victim of that. So they hoodwinked them into believing they did it. But now they're coming out, they're waking up, and they realize, hey, we have allowed these people to destroy us, right? So we are vulnerable to being taken over by this Polish lobby. Yes, yes. So it's not surprising to me that the first person I saw publicly, and I saw him on TV, talk about this looming economic crisis leading to a real revolution was Zbigniew Brzezinski himself on his daughter's show, Morning Joe, a few years ago. Now, he would know, he's the architect, no, but in my opinion, he's right, he's telling the truth. We really face a real revolution with this economic collapse that threatens to challenge, for the first time in the history of the world, the first time in the history of the Eurocentric world, which today is the world, to challenge the hegemony of these Western Europeans and to wrestle control of the world away from them and to give it to a Polish-led Yugoslav hegemonic New World Order. Yes, and why? Because, again, the world has been turned into chaos. Okay? It's almost as if there was a war and the West has been defeated. The West and its allies have been defeated. Devastation, poverty, disease, economic collapse. Okay? So the world, the world, it's almost as if they've been, de facto, they've been defeated by war, but it hasn't been by war. I mean, it hasn't been by an overt war. It's been through stealth policies that are continuing to destroy the old world order that have been spearheaded by the American political intellectual class. You say, well, before there have been economic crashes, the depressions. Yes, there have been great depressions throughout economic history. However, this is the first Great Depression where we really face a challenge to the hegemonic position of the Anglo-Saxon tribe in the Eurocentric tribes in the Eurocentric world, which today is the world. And I'll tell you why. For example, the last Great Depression in the 1930s, right? People were patriotic, they were God-fearing, religious, there were religious-based values in society. So with the economic collapse and the associated social dislocations, it was manageable by society because they did things like they used scapegoats, most notably the Jews, the Holocaust, and others. So the scapegoat through history has always been used when there is economic collapse or downturn to make the masses focus on this object of hate rather than the underlying causes for the problem. So the Jews, they know they're going to be scapegoated this time, and they are very much culpable, in my opinion, and I'm entitled to my opinion. But I am very, very concerned because Zbigniew Brzezinski, so far as I was concerned, was telling the truth. Because of the erosion of religious-based values, patriotism, you know, the get-over attitude, you go to buy a cell phone, it's like, I'm an old lady, I get a headache. It's like you're dealing with shysters, con men, and thieves. Up is down, down is up. I just want to buy the best, get bang for the buck for when I buy something. I don't want to feel like I'm being manipulated to buy something I don't need, I don't want, overpaying, you know. So you've got that ingrained in the economy, that kind of thinking, mainstream marketing, and then you have drugs. Anyone will tell you that drugs have always been used in society to bring a society down. That is as old, dope as used to bring a society down. That is as old as dope itself. And you know, ladies and gentlemen, now, if you flood a country with dope and then you destroy, there's nothing hip or cool about it. It's used to bring people down. And you know, the sad thing about addiction is it's a progressive disease. It's a progressive disease, and so it just can only destroy. It can only destroy. And after a while, people are taking the dope not to get high, but just to satisfy a craving. It's not even getting them a pleasurable experience. It's just to get relief from a craving. And it's very expensive. It's a rich man's vice to be. It's a rich man's vice. And people think that black people are use the drugs disproportionately more than white people in America, but that's not true either. It's just that the way drugs are sold in the African American community, on the street corner or visibly, It's easy for the cops to target them in the suburbs. They go in their homes and whatnot. There's more dope used in the stock exchanges in New York than in the ghettos in New York. It's a rich man's vice. It's just that whites are not captured in the statistics because they deal with it on private care. They don't let it spiral out of control and get ensnared in the criminal justice system, or they have to use the public health care services. But that is the scourge of addiction has had a greater impact on white folk than black folk. But dope in any society is used to bring it down, and it's been used to bring this country down. The shyster con man thief mentality that is pervasive in American society too has brought this country down. The dope, the erosion of religious-based values. Now, I'm not puritanical at all. I believe in live and let live. I try not to be judgmental, but I do believe in standards. I do believe in what Martin Luther King said, that people should be judged on the basis of the content of their character. I believe character and integrity are very important. But I am flexible. I'm not judgmental. So I see that here, coming back here, to see what the neighbors did to my mother and me and whatnot. I try to mind my own business, but they're like in your face. You know, to do it to a 90-year-old woman is sick. And to me, it's sick. Using Martin Luther King's criteria, these people are garbage. Using the content of their character. And so I see all these things. I see this, and I see that when that economic crisis hits, he was telling the truth, Brzezinski. We face a revolution unlike in the past, because people, their patriotism, their morale, their ethics, their morals has been so greatly eroded that what the psychologists call the superego, that watchdog to tell people what's right and wrong, really has been so weakened that people are going to do things like, I'm a revolutionary, I'm going to liberate a high-definition TV, they're going to steal, it could be very, very messy, and there won't be money for drug treatment programs, there won't be jobs. It's going to be very, very scary. Not to mention, there won't be the National Guard or the reserves, because the military-industrial complex is being destroyed by this shift of resources to the neocon paradigm away from the military-industrial complex. Ladies and gentlemen, we are in for a very, very rocky ride. All of this suggests to my mind that the scapegoating is going to be even more horrific than the last time, as the powers that be try to point the finger, not at them, away from them, to others for this looming economic catastrophe. The scapegoating is going to be even more horrific. Watch. So, I'm saying all of these things to say that, yes, we are living through a second American Revolution. That really is a revolution that potentially could shift control of the Eurocentric world. For the first time in the history of the Eurocentric world, since those Africans migrated to Mesopotamia, the Fertile Crescent, and Greece, then Rome, then north and west to the north into the Anglo-Saxon tribes, that really Western Europe really faces loss of control. The Spanish, the Dutch, the French, the Swede, the British, the German, the French, the Portuguese, the Italians, the Norwegians, they really face the loss of control of the Eurocentric world for the first time in the history of the world. So, So we shall see. I don't think it's going to happen, but it's a real possibility for the first time. And so it's really very, very troubling. And it has come about through this, what I call the what is obvious, the Second American Revolution, the society being hijacked by the American elites in the American political intellectual class who have, and read that other quote from Brzezinski's book, Between Two Ages. In the technotronic society, plutocratic preeminence is challenged by the political leadership, which is increasingly permeated by individuals possessing special skills and intellectual talent. Okay, so really what he's saying, the plutocratic is the business, the corporate, the capitalist, what he's saying is that, and this is really what is the genesis or the root, or these are the people who are spearheading this revolution. The American political intellectual elites. Washington, Columbia University, Hopkins University, scholars at schools like those, and then the Congress and the presidency. The mechanics are that these scholars come up with theories, whether it's the neocon theory, the war on terror, flood the country with dope, benign neglect. They come up with these theories, right? Then the theories are codified by the Congress. They're made into legislation, laws, right? And the resources are made available for the president, the executive, to execute or carry out these policies that have and continue to destroy the Anglo-Saxon old world capitalist corporate hegemony. That's how it works. The scholars come up with the ideas, the Congress make the ideas law, and the president, the American president, carries out or executes the law. That's how I see it. It's been happening. It used to be that the role of the politicians and the intellectuals were to serve the capitalist class, right? To assure that their markets were expanded and protected globally. Now their role has been to shift to these new paradigms like the neocon paradigm, the war on terror, benign neglect, flood the country with dope, whatever, that is destroying the old world order. And it has destroyed America. America is not coming back. Now, I've said this a number of times. The thing to do, if you can, is what, as a student of economic history, you get out. I'm trying to get out because it is going to get very, I mean, it's sad for me, a descendant of the slaves who built this country, slave labor for free, to see what in a little over a generation, how the whole thing has been permanently, irreversibly destroyed by immigrants. People just cut off the proverbial boat, and I can trace my lineage to before this country was even a country. And you know, it is very painful for me. Very painful for me. But the thing to do, and what I'm trying to do, is to get out. I'm Beverly Copeland. This has been the Beverly Copeland Report.